Today we are answering Kirsten's question about germ phobia. And she writes, how do you suggest I navigate my germ phobia with my kids? I hate that it affects them. I'm always anxiously nagging everyone to wash hands and don't touch things in public. I'm working on myself and I know that it's my problem, not theirs. However, the fact is I'm anxious and much of the time it involves them. So, Kirsten, my heart goes out to you. I totally get it because I too have suffered from anxiety. And if you have, an anxiety about germ phobia, it can really impact all of your parenting all of the time. Like, don't touch that, wash your hands. Like you said, you're nagging at your children a lot, and that really can be disruptive. And you're not wrong in asking this question. You're right to ask this question about how to protect them from your germ phobia, because things that kind of, plague us in our minds, our cognitive fallacies, our anxieties, our phobias do shape our children's experience. They are experiencing our anxiety, and we're very, very contagious. Dr. Lawrence Cohen, in his book, The Opposite of Worry, talks about the fact that we as animals, as human animals, are very emotionally contagious, right? We catch other people's feelings. We catch other people's anxiety. And children especially are wired to look to their parents to read a situation about whether it's dangerous or not. So your kids are looking to you and they're seeing that, germs are dangerous. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, well, I don't have germ phobia, I want to tell you that all of us have certain things that we're hypersensitive to, that we are more reactive to. And so Kirsten's question relates to all of us. And I can certainly relate as someone who used to have pretty clinical PTSD, that my anxieties about going certain places or about seeing certain triggers was something that I had to very actively overcome so that I didn't inflict it on my own children. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you can relate to. And I want to actually dive in with 3 steps that I think can be very powerful and very helpful. It's tough love, which is kind of my signature coaching style. So sorry, Kirsten, I hope it's helpful. But you should know that I'm really saying this both out of a place of love and out of a place of experience. I myself have overcome anxieties. And, I do say this out of a place of what is best for you and your children. Now, before I answer Kirsten, I just want to mention that this is my Family Reset, 2025 Family Reset. It's a refresh. It's a rejuvenation. I'm here to boost you up, to give you energy, to remind you to stay on focus, that you are a leader, that this is an adventure, that your family is the most meaningful project of your life, and that you can do this. And if you want to step into that leadership role, if you want my curriculum for how to become an amazing leader, if you want my projects for how to set up traditions and rituals and the types of rites of passage that create a strong family culture so you can raise resilient kids, even in an ever fragile world, then please make sure to sign up for the studio. It's open right now. It only opens once a year, and this price will not be coming back again. And in fact, if you're watching this live, the early bird price is actually active right now, and that will not be repeated. So you need to go to highfam.com/studio. And you can sign up and just know that that is where I can give you the most, in-depth, long-term support, coaching, content, community, all the things that you need to become the leader that your children deserve and that you know you can become. And this month I will leave no question unanswered. Leave me a comment on this video, and a comment on any of my YouTube videos. DM me if you want it to be anonymous. Leave me a comment on Instagram or post in my Instagram story box. I will try to go live and answer it. So follow me for this Avital Answers series. And today, let's answer Kirsten. So she asked, how can I navigate my germ phobia with my kids? So the first thing I will say, and this is the tough love, is that you need to treat anxiety, okay? You need to treat the root cause, not just the symptoms. You actually need to overcome this germ phobia. And a lot of people won't say that to you. They'll just be like, oh, empathic, that's hard, I'm sorry for you, that kind of thing, right? But they might not actually tell you that this is something that you can and should overcome. Now, I say that as someone who has overcome severe kind of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I know that it is possible. There is really, really fantastic results with things like CBT in today's world. And if you can't afford it, or if you don't want to go to therapy, actually there's been a lot of success with using AI. You can go into ChatGPT and say, help me overcome my germ phobia. What can I do? What exercises can I do to desensitize myself, right? And when you voluntarily face your fears and take on your anxieties, we see really good results in overcoming them. So you actually have to work on healing that directly, right? Your goal isn't just to suppress it and just to like manage it and just to kind of like zip your mouth every time you want to say wash your hands, because that's going to be a struggle of willpower. That's going to be you constantly overpowering yourself, rather than actually resolving this issue so that you just get more comfortable with the idea of germs, right? Now, all of us want our kids to be, hygienic. I think most people want a clean home. They want their kids to wash their hands before they eat or when they come home from school or something like that. All of us, have some level, but what we're trying to get you towards is closer to the norm, right? If you are very high on your germ phobia and, there's an average of what's considered normal about germ phobia, we want to kind of bring you back closer to that norm. Now, you'll never be someone who's just completely not a germaphobe, but a little bit, right? And a big part of that is number 2, which is owning that it is a you problem, not a general objective problem. Okay. When we perceive things and our brain is a little bit out of control in inflating the problem and making us very anxious and constantly focusing on it, that's an us problem. That's not necessarily objective truth, right? The objective truth, actually, for example, when it comes to germs, is that a little bit of exposure is good, right? Is that there is such a thing as too much sterility, and that actually harms kids, health and wellness, for example, right? We know that kids who don't get exposed to germs and live in a very sterile environment actually have a weaker immune system. So if we look at things just logically, right? If we just kind of neutralize your anxiety for a moment, we understand that there is kind of a rational, logical, scientifically backed norm of how to relate to germs. And then there's you. And you have heightened this problem in your brain for whatever reason. We don't even have to get into that history or understand it. But for whatever reason, you are seeing it inflated. So wherever you look, it's as if you have these kind of infrared glasses on and you're picking up germs. You're noticing, you're imagining these kind of evil monsters all over their hands and all over their stuff and on their cup. And so you're very heightened to it. But that heightened sensitivity is a faulty alarm bell in your own brain, right? Not in the world. And so you need to own that. You've got to actually be transparent with your kids in an age appropriate way and say, I'm sometimes really anxious about germs. It's something I'm working on and it's not your responsibility. And what I'm getting at here, Kirsten, is the kind of pattern and the common practice that many of us mothers do, which is reverse parenting. We kind of put the responsibility for our comfort and our anxieties and our issues on our child, and we expect them to solve it for us, right? But the idea here is to make sure that our kids understand that we know that this is an us thing. Okay, it's a little bit like maybe your kid is climbing, okay, and you're very anxious about them getting injured, but you understand that climbing is healthy and important for them, and actually that the risks are rather low and are worth it, right? Worth it for them to exercise their bodies and develop their muscles. And so you manage your own anxiety. Now you might say, honey, I get really worried when you go that high, right? Do you mind staying, up until this point and not going further? Because I just can't take it. I'm just getting like hyperventilating. I'm getting super worried. Not because you can't do it, not because the world is unsafe, not because you wouldn't manage or it would be dangerous de facto objectively, but almost, understanding that it's a me problem, right? That's asking your child to be thoughtful of your kind of, handicap in this area and of your struggle in this area. But we don't want to linger there. We want to treat the problem, okay, own the problem. And then we also want to free them of the problem. And that's step number 3, which is where you actually free your child of you. And you own that it's a you problem. You try to treat it and overcome it. And I have full faith, Kirsten, that you will and you can and you should, right? But you also should arrange for your kids to have spaces where they're not managed by your anxiety. Okay. Maybe that's already happening at school with the grandparents, play dates, where they are allowed to touch stuff, where they're allowed to climb, when no one's telling them to keep washing their hands. Right. And it's a way of saying that even if I can't always model this freedom, I won't block them from experiencing it. I'm not going to hold my child back from having a normal, healthy relationship with germs just because I don't, right? And this is something that all of us parents can do to one degree or another. If I'm very, very nervous about climbing, for example, then I can make sure that they go off to a climbing class or a climbing camp or go climbing with their dad. And I don't need to watch. I don't need to be there. I don't need to be kind of spoiling the party, right? Ruining their fun and whispering anxieties into their brain. Instead, I'll remove myself because I know that I'm the bottleneck here. I'm the problem, right? And so all of us have to compensate for our weaknesses in our parenting from time to time. Recently a single mom was asking me, I'm raising sons, I'm a single mom. What do I need to do? And one of the things was, well, we need to compensate for the fact that they don't have a masculine role model, right? Okay, so where can we find those? Is that going to be in a camp or in the Boy Scouts or in our community, in our family? But I do need, to make sure that I'm completing the things that I can't give my children with someone else. And that's totally fine. That's totally normal. That's something that we're all going to have to do in one degree or another, right? Whether it's our anxieties or just things that we don't know anything about. You see this, let's say, with immigrant parents. When I moved country as a kid, my parents couldn't help me with the language, right? Okay, but they made sure that other people could. They compensated for that elsewhere. So if you are working on treating it and working on owning it, those are great two first steps. But in the interim, while you're kind of coming into a more normal level of tolerance of germs, you can make sure that they are able to have a normal relationship with germs outside of you. So kind of remove yourself so that you are not the problem that's constantly nagging at them. Now, one last bonus tip here, because those were the 3 steps, but I'll also say that sometimes it can be very helpful to limit our anxieties to a specific behavior. So for example, in CBT, there's this concept of, let's say, the worry box or a worry hour, right? If I'm constantly obsessing and worrying in my head, then maybe I try to limit myself and say, you know what, I'm going to worry between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. But the rest of the day, I'm just not allowed to think about it. I have to switch the channel in my brain. And it might be helpful for you to say, okay, you know what? Hand washing is something I just can't give up on. They have to wash their hands every time they walk in, every time they eat, after a meal, whatever you choose. Okay. But I'm not going to make them maybe change their clothes or wipe down surfaces or I don't know what else you do, sterilize things, right? Maybe you can concentrate your anxiety on one thing and try to release the rest and just be like, you know what, that I just can't do. It's just not going to happen. I'm just going to let it go. I know I'm making it sound easy. I know it's not easy, but it is simple, right? It is a simple rule that you could potentially abide by. Often very simple, very modular kind of formulaic rules help us. Like sometimes when people are trying to eat healthy, they can't hold and juggle all the macros and the calorie counting, etc. But they're just like, okay, I'm not eating anything with flour. Okay. And that's a simple rule that kind of helps me to stay grounded and clear. It's just a filter that I can quickly run it through. So for you, maybe you're going to choose one thing, like, okay, if it's not hand washing, I'm not talking about it. Something along those lines to help you to actually start to behaviorally limit your anxiety out in the world. Often we think anxiety is born of childhood trauma and we need to do inner child work and we need to go back to our childhood and our parents' relationship, and maybe we need psychoanalysis or we need psychotherapy, and it's going to take years. But sometimes there's an outside-in approach, which is the behavioral approach, where you simply stop doing the things that are enabling and agitating and encouraging and reinforcing your anxiety. So I'll give you an example from my own life, okay? I told you I had clinical PTSD. It was born of trauma to do with terror attacks, okay? And because I lived through terror attacks, I was very afraid of particular areas, of particular places that I would go, and I would think that an attack would happen. Now, I couldn't get over that fear. My heart was beating, I was flushed red, I was hyperventilating, I was afraid, okay? And that was something that, okay, I did CBT, I worked through it and everything, but the fear, my brain just still read it as a red flag, as high alert, emergency, crisis, danger, okay? But I refused to accept that reality. And I said to myself, you're going to feel the fear and do it anyway. You're going to feel petrified and afraid that you're about to be murdered, but you're still going to stride into this place and, go shopping or visit friends or do whatever it is that you need to do. And so I actually managed to train my brain to get desensitized to the fear because I was just kept facing it. Like I just kept finding myself in situations that would pique my anxiety. I would be extremely traumatized and afraid. And I had a full blown kind of panic attack, but I stayed and I desensitized my body to those triggers. Do you see? So sometimes it's not about going to therapy and overcoming it and talking about it and understanding where it comes from. Like, dude, I understand where my anxiety comes from very, very well. That doesn't help me actually with the anxiety. Just because I could tell you very clearly exactly where it comes from and exactly which experiences traumatized me doesn't mean that I don't still experience the trauma. So I wouldn't recommend going on a lifelong, archaeological dig of trying to figure out where this anxiety comes from, but I would recommend desensitizing yourself to it. Tolerate it. Be there when they don't wash their hands and they eat a snack. Right? And just sit with that for a minute. Okay. And just be like, I've got to tolerate this. I've got to just manage it. I've got to breathe through it. I've got to, distract myself and manage myself and coach myself and not allow the anxiety to run my life. So here's a mantra for you, Kirsten. One of the things I promised myself was I will not allow this anxiety to run my life. It is not in charge of me. I am in charge of it. And you do need to promise yourself that, kind of with this kind of ruthless, relentless conviction that how dare it think that it's going to come between me and my kids? How dare it think that it's going to come between me and my freedoms? Who is this anxiety to think that it has any kind of power over me? Yeah, sure, it might get me a bit nervous. It might make me, breathe a bit shallow, but I'm still doing the thing. It's not going to stop me. I'm still going there. I'm still going here. We're still going to play with the Play-Doh. We're still going to, bake the pizza, and we're going to touch things, and there's going to be germs, and we're still going to do it because screw it, I'm not letting it control me or my children's childhood. All right. So if that makes sense, then I hope this is very helpful for you. And this is part of my series of No Question Goes Unanswered. And Deepika, hello, welcome. You have asked me a question right now, so I am going to answer it right here and right now. You say, how can I include masculine energy in my kid's life as my husband stays in another city due to work commitments? Okay, great. So this actually comes along with this idea of compensating, right? Of compensating for a lack. Like, oh, they don't have a masculine, figure in their lives during the week when he's in another city, or during the month, or during this year. It doesn't matter. How can I compensate? And then I look for ways. Okay, is it that they are part of a martial arts group? Okay, this is actually my favorite way to offer young boys, especially masculine energy, opportunities, because martial arts comes with a lot of discipline, with hierarchy, with authority, benevolent, positive authority, not oppressive authority. And it's physical. And it compensates for a lot of the things that they won't get in school or at home with you. So I think that would be my number one thing, is the martial arts. But then you can look, okay, do I have other family members? Is there a grandpa? Is there uncles? Are there cousins? Are there good friends? Are there neighbors who might be doing kind of, stereotypically masculine things that could attract my boys that they would like? Maybe it's more physical things. Maybe it's more outdoor things, right? Maybe they are able to help with work. Okay, do we know someone who's a mechanic? Do we know someone who's a plumber and they need an intern or an apprentice? I don't know how old your kids are, but it's the type of thing that you want to look for opportunities for them to see lots of positive male role models throughout their week, throughout their month, throughout their year, right? What are the, great stand-up men with positive masculine traits that they can emulate, that they can come alongside, that they can join? And that might be you hosting other families, right? Being like, hey, come over for dinner. Or joining up in the park on the weekend, or going boating, or going bike riding, or running, or walking their dog for them, right? Attaching to other people who can offer them a fantastic opportunity. But so Deepika says 1 is 9 and 1 is 6. Fantastic. So are they in a martial art? Because that would be a really easy, low-hanging fruit way of introducing masculine energy during the week. That would actually be my number one piece of advice. I have a video on raising boys with masculine energy, 10 ways. I recommend that you go and watch it, because all of those things are going to be things that you can do with your boys right now, whether their father is around or not. The other thing is to maintain a relationship with their dad, even when he's not there, right? Like, can they have a daily, maybe like a little book club where they read a chapter together every single day about an interesting book about history or about science or about something that they can all enjoy together, right? But maintaining a relationship with their dad. And I will say something that's a little bit countercultural, but you've all heard me say this kind of thing before, so here we go, which is that they do need to hear you frame their father positively. Okay, so even the fact that he's in another city working to support his family, that is a really inspiring, aspirational, impressive masculine trait, right? He's being self-sacrificial. He's working very hard. He's giving up on the comforts of being home and being with his kids and being with his wife in order to support you guys. And I don't know if this is something that you feel or something that you've communicated, but I would say that that is something that they should know, right? That is a big deal for them to kind of wrap their head around it. Many times, and I have been guilty of this, when my husband has traveled for work, or when he was doing his medical residency and he didn't even live at home, I found myself resentful of him. I found myself judging him, like, oh, he's not around, I'm doing all the work, and I'm going to bet that kind of mindset, I think it probably cast a shadow on my children, and they didn't see it necessarily as this positive, extremely generous, hardworking thing that he was doing for our family. And that would be a huge mistake. So it's important that you find a way to frame it up, and show them how much you admire that stoicism, that self-sacrifice, that all of those kind of things that are positive masculine traits, in the way that you talk about him and talk to him. Does that make sense, Deepika? You say for girls too, this works. Absolutely, for girls too, this works. Of course, of course, of course. And both girls and boys need healthy masculine and feminine role models. Okay, so doesn't matter what kind of kid you have, they always need to be able to look up to stand up men and women in society so that they can model either themselves or their partners off of those people. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not true that girls need, feminine role models and boys need male role models. In fact, they both need both, either for themselves or for their, construction, their mind map of what creates a good mother or a good father, a good potential mate, say in the future, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I just want to make that clear. Also, martial arts are fantastic for girls too. Yes, but they're just stereotypically going to be more attractive to boys. Deepika says, thank you so much, Avital. This helps a lot. Oh, I did feel resentment and my daughters felt that too, but you have been able to see it in a positive light. Right. And you know what? I had an amazing conversation, Deepika, with one of my students inside the studio whose husband was deployed in the military. Okay. And she was at home with tiny, tiny children and feeling so depleted and so resentful. And I could totally relate to her because I've been in those situations where you go weeks or months or sometimes even a full year without your husband's support. And all you feel like is, why am I doing everything? Why am I holding the whole load? Why is all the mental load on me? Why is all the housework on me? It feels so unfair. Oh, he's off gallivanting with his friends. He's off having fun. He's off on adventures. He's off developing his career. He's in the C-suite. He's having early nights. He can watch Netflix in the evening. He's in meetings where people actually value his brain cells and see him as prestigious. And it was such a tit-for-tat competitive mindset and a very resentful mindset. And I know where it comes from. It comes from kind of fourth, fifth wave feminism and a lot of ideas that have infiltrated into my mind. When I was able to reframe that, it completely changed my marriage and it completely changed, everything about my life. But I want to talk to you about this student of mine. So this student said to me, I'm so resentful and it's so hard, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked her, I said, Han, I just want to ask you, okay, I don't know if this is true. Just checking, okay? Just checking. Are you proud of his military service? And she was like, yeah. I was like, do you align with it? Do you agree with it? Do you feel like, yeah, this represents me? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And is he providing for your family? She's like, yeah, totally. Like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. He provides everything. I was like, okay. And is this a choice you entered into consensually as a knowing adult, She's like, yeah, we made this choice together that this would be the best thing for our family. I was like, okay. And I know he probably also has a lot of fun and, laughs with his mates and he's not up breastfeeding at night. But is it kind of a little bit hard what he's doing as well? And she's like, yeah, it's very hard. He's working very hard. I would never want to switch with him. And I was like, okay, so maybe there's room for a reframe here. First of all, if you're proud of his military service, then I want to tell you something. It's your military service too. He's only able to do what he's doing because of you. You are enabling that. You are allowing that. You are home with his kids. You're raising his kids. You're both sacrificing for him to be able to do this. So that's, first of all, is that you should be so proud, as a military wife. You've allowed this to happen. You've supported this happening. Like, you take pride in that. And this is true for your husband's career as well. Like, my husband's a doctor. Okay. I'm not a doctor, but I allowed him. I enabled him. I supported him through medical school. And I took on all the nights with the kids, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like I get a small percentage of that, of that success, right? His success is my success because it's something we built together. It's something we allowed each other to do. Okay. So that's first of all. Second of all, I own the fact that I wouldn't want to switch places with him. I don't actually want to be out hustling. I wouldn't want to move city. I wouldn't want to miss the days with my kids. I wouldn't want to be in military deployment. Like, I don't want to switch with him. So I need to stop pretending that I do, right? And then I need to own the fact that his sacrifice is also a sacrifice, right? This is uncomfortable to say, but as women, I think we're often very, very focused on the unpaid mental load of motherhood, right? And it's fair enough. Like, there is an unpaid mental load of motherhood, all the emotional labor that we do and all the thinking and all the awareness and all the, emotional connection and processing, etc. That's a mental load. Even just managing the backpacks and the schedules and all these things. Okay. But we often poo-poo and disregard the mental load that our partners take on. And in this case, for example, if your partner is deployed or, working far away, there's a huge mental load beyond the absolutely astronomical heavy weight of financial support and financial responsibility that many men take on in a larger proportion than women. There's also the stress of being away, right? Of being, it's self-sacrificial. It's self-sacrificial to be willing to work hard. Maybe it's night shifts, maybe it's long days, maybe it's a difficult boss or hard clients or a rough economy or whatever it is that you're going through, and put yourself out there for your family back home. They get to sleep in their own beds. They get to eat homemade food. There's also perks of not being the one traveling, right? And so when we put all of that in place, my client was suddenly like, it was like this moment where she was like, I'm so grateful to him. And I know that he's so grateful to me. And we're a team. And we've made these choices because this is the best thing for our family holistically. It's hard for me and it's hard for him. But there are perks for me and there are perks for him. And in the long run, we're both doing this for our family, right? You are co-founders of one holistic unit. Your family is a holistic unit, and you need to think about what's best for the family. You have strengths and weaknesses. He has strengths and weaknesses. So now you're making like, okay, these are our manpower hours. These are our financial resources. This is what we've got. Okay, we've decided together to allocate it, that he's going to go off to that city and work, and I'm going to be home with the kids because that makes the most sense for our life right now. That's what's going to take us closer to our goal of financial independence and well-being and all of that stuff. So I'm going to play my strengths because I'm a team player. He's going to play his strengths because he's a team player, and we're both going to be hella appreciative of each other. So the phone call sounds like, thank you so much for being out there in the world and working so hard on behalf of our family, right? That's what the phone call sounds like. I'm so appreciative. I don't take it for granted. It's a huge, huge, it's a huge self-sacrifice and a big thing. And you know what? There's no shortage of dads out there who wouldn't do that. So thank you. And his phone call sounds like, babe, I so appreciate that you are home with the kids because I feel safe and focused on my work. I can go out and do the thing because I know that they're being raised by their loving, incredible mom. And you've just got that down, and it's so much hard work. And you're doing that for us and for our children. And I salute you. So you're saluting him and he's saluting you. And there's this great teamwork vibe. Deepika says, thank you so much for sharing your client's example. I got goosebumps. Yeah, we often go into that resentment mode and victim mindset, refusing to see our partner's struggles. Right. So that's the type of thing that I would coach you on inside the studio. I want to keep you on the straight and narrow of focusing on optimism, positivity, hope, connection, building towards something meaningful. Your family is the most meaningful project of your life. You're not doing this for nothing. He's not out there for nothing. We're not just in a tit for tat competition with our partners. No, we are co-founders. We've built something meaningful in our lives, and we are working together to make that come to light and to life. And in order to do that, we need to be able to, disintegrate any resentments as they come up. So we have a clean slates where we're constantly feeling appreciative, right? And not resentful, because that does build up residue and does make our relationships suffer. Okay. Hana, is that the name? Says, I can't tell anymore what is fake and what is real, as his reactions are so over the top. Any tips for handling this? I appreciate your advice so much. Thank you. The question starts earlier. My 6-year-old son has been lying a lot about the smallest things that I can see are obviously lies. I'm not sure how to handle this. He over dramatizes everything, and I keep thinking the boy who cried wolf. Okay. First of all, you can tell him that story. There's a reason that story has survived so many generations. It's a powerful story. It's important to understand that if you make things up, people end up not believing you. So here's what I want to say about this, Hana. It is our job and our duty as parents to convey our values to our child. Okay, they need spiritual guidance. If anyone can come up with a better term than that, then please give it to me, because I'm not talking about woo-woo. I'm not even talking about religious. I'm talking about moral guidance. Okay, for example, telling a child that lying is wrong. Okay, This is something that unfortunately us modern parents are really squeamish about at this point. We're very uncomfortable. We're afraid of our own shadow. We don't want to sound judgmental. And we're always preoccupied, and this is due to the gentle parenting world, we're always preoccupied with the unmet need. Why is he lying? He's lying because I didn't breastfeed enough, because he doesn't get enough attention. Why is it's some kind of unmet need? It's some kind of maybe diagnostic label that causes it. Maybe it's because he has ADHD. Maybe it's because he doesn't sleep enough at night. Maybe he's hungry. Like, we're always getting on this detective hat and trying to figure out this hidden secret reason behind the bad behavior. But my friends, bad behavior needs correction, okay? And yes, I use the words bad behavior unapologetically. I know it sounds so judgmental and so archaic and old-fashioned, but listen, lying is bad. It's bad because it's morally wrong. It also is bad because it's unhealthy for our relationships. It leads people not to trust us. It makes us be perceived as suspicious and shifty, and it disintegrates our believability in our relationships, and that's a problem. But we today are so uncomfortable telling our kids not to lie because lying is wrong, plain and simple. It's morally wrong. And almost every society of human civilization has come to that conclusion, that you shouldn't lie, that lying is a problem, that lying disintegrates the fabric of a society. And so when your son lies to you, what I want you to do is maintain warmth. Okay, you still love the kid. He's just a kid and we want to teach him. Okay, I'm not saying get angry. I'm not saying be rejecting. I'm not saying be scary. But I am saying be very firm and clear. And you tell him, sweetie, that is a lie. What you just said is not true. I can see that you did take the cookie, or whatever the lie is, right? That's clearly the truth, is that you clearly did take the cookie. And you need to tell me the truth so that I believe you. Okay. And he goes, no, I didn't, etc. Whatever he responds at. And you just hold that line. I don't want you to lie to me, and I will never lie to you. It's really important that we tell each other the truth so that you can believe me and I can believe you. And you do want to make it clear to him that he's not going to be punished for telling the truth. Like, if he comes back and says, okay, yes, I really did take the cookie, then you might say to him, you know what? I'm not happy that you took the cookie, and I'm really not happy that you lied about it. But I'm really proud of you that you told me the truth. It's not easy to own up to the truth after we've lied, but it's always the right thing to do. And I'm proud of you that you did that, right? So you kind of lay out a path for him where you are guiding him towards making the right choice. Now, I also would recommend having a policy that you communicate very clearly, which is, I never lie to you. I say this to my kids explicitly, okay? I never lie to you. And you're never going to lie to him. Not about Santa Claus, not about the tooth fairy, not about sex, death, money, religion, politics. Don't lie to him. Make trust and truth a policy in your home so that it does become something that you really are a believable role model about. Okay. But when he's caught in a lie, you do need to catch him out on it. And it is appropriate for him to feel a little bit ashamed or guilty. So that's another thing, is that in modern day parenting, we're always like, oh, I want to tell him not to lie without ever shaming him. But it's okay. You have enough of a foundation of secure attachment, of love, of trust, that you can also allow for and manage and handle and hold space for a little bit of shame and guilt. When we've done something wrong, it's a natural and healthy response that our mind has to feel guilty about it. And so you can actually say to him, when you lie, maybe you feel a bit guilty, like you've done the wrong thing. And that's your conscience telling you that that's wrong. And that's not good, right? That disrespects our relationship. That makes it harder for me to believe you in the future. And it's simply not the truth. So it's the wrong thing to do anyway. Hannah, does that make sense? So actually calling him on it, allowing him to feel a little bit bad about it, that's the healthy, natural mechanism for us deciding not to do that in the future because it didn't feel good. It wasn't the right thing to do, right? And help guiding him towards a truth-telling environment, right? A truth-telling atmosphere and culture in the home where he learns that we are here for the truth, even when it's difficult. And the idea there is that you also need to start being really truthful for him. So if you're not comfortable answering questions about where babies come from, is a big one for a lot of people, but maybe it's something else, right? Maybe, questions about death or about religion or about disease or about grandpa, whatever it might be, then you've got to get really comfortable being a trusted source of information for him. And that is, again, something that we cover in depth inside of the studio. Hannah says, yes, absolutely. Thanks for laying it out so clearly. That helps a lot to have a clear plan. Wonderful. Hannah, if this is the kind of thing that helps you, join the studio. It's at highfam.com/studio, not the studio, sorry, highfam.com/studio. Early bird pricing is now. This is the type of coaching I do all the time inside there. And I would love to have you join me. Okay, Lenny says, is this the opportunity to ask all questions? I've been a studio member and would love a house update. Are your children still sharing a bedroom? How do your zones look now? Lenny, I would love to share some of that with you inside the studio. Okay, I have 2 children sharing a bedroom at the moment, and my zones have been a little bit updated as my children grow, right? So now we have, let's say, a more invested focus zone because we're doing a lot more schoolwork and that kind of thing, right? But I also still have a 4-year-old at home. So we still have the Lego and the Playmobil and the Magnetiles, and all of the imagination zone is still very active. In fact, even my 13-year-old still uses the imagination zone. So, it's super active, right? So that kind of thing. I would love to share that with you inside of the studio. And if you have a question for me that I can answer here without actually panning the camera around my house, then I would be happy to answer it. Larissa, how to navigate resentment when he comes from work and he just goes in the bedroom or bathroom for hours and leaves you to navigate everything for dinner and night routine with 2 small children and a baby. Okay, Larissa, that is a great question. I do just want to say I'm really encouraging everyone to join the studio right now, but I also have a course on marriage called Married You, and I also have a membership that goes with that called Desire Lab, so that you can keep the desire and the chemistry going. And Married You would actually teach you all of those skills, communication skills, etc. But I want to answer your question because no question goes unanswered this month. So Larissa, bear with me. Are you with me here? Give me a yes in the comments, and I'll share this, piece by piece. The first thing that we need to do to dismantle resentment is to own our part in the situation. So very often we see a situation, like I'll speak for myself, I'll see a situation where my husband, let's say, takes a nap and I have all the kids. And I'm like, how dare he? He's being so selfish. This is so unfair. Doesn't he see me? Doesn't he understand me? Why isn't he reading my mind? And when I look at it objectively, I actually have to break down the fact that he said, I'm going to have a nap. And I said, okay. Right? Like I said, okay. I didn't mean okay, but I said okay. And I was part of that problem. I didn't communicate my needs clearly, respectfully, non-manipulatively, right? I didn't ask, hey, actually, I really need help. Could you help me, please? Right? Now, I don't know, Larissa, if this is the case for you, but in my case, if I ask for help in a vulnerable, feminine, kind way, without being critical, without being snarky, without being manipulative, I can't think of an instance in which my husband has said no. Okay. He's not just going to say, no, I won't help you. Like that's not going to happen. What will happen is I'll expect him to read my mind and the subtext and the nuance and the tone in my voice, or to just understand that I've been with the kids all day and I haven't articulated it clearly. And he's just a straightforward, straight talking man. And if I said, okay, he thinks I mean okay, because that's what I said. And he treats me like a grown adult. Larissa, is this something you might be slightly resonating with, that you maybe don't necessarily ask for things in a clear-cut, honest, vulnerable way? Second thing is sometimes when I do ask for it, I ask for it through criticism. This is a illness that many women are sick with, right? Which is that instead of just saying what we want, we pose a test, right? We pose a complaint, okay? So we'll complain. I'm always with the kids, or you sleep so much more than me, or I was up all night, or my work matters too, or you didn't even notice all the things I do, right? We pose it as a complaint. And we get ourselves into so much unnecessary trouble when we do this for this reason. Many men are going to hear that as criticism, and immediately their defenses are going to go up. They're going to withhold, they're going to withdraw, they're going to back off and be like, I don't need this nagging. I don't need this kind of criticism. She's always on my case. Nothing I do is ever good enough for her. Have you heard your husband say these words? I can never please you. And so we lose, right? And then they withdraw, and then we get even more mad. Like, what? I'm here drowning with the kids. There's Cheerios in my hair. There's spit up down my shirt. And you're just like gonna go and play your video game, gonna go and go to sleep, right? It enrages us even more. But the truth is that we didn't communicate our needs in a way that helped our case. We didn't do ourselves any favors in posing it as a criticism. So when you pose it as a criticism, you're going to spike defensiveness, but only 100% of the time. Okay. So the second thing is to learn how to ask for things in a straightforward way. Babe, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I could really use your help. Okay. Babe, it would be so amazing if you could just hold the baby for half an hour so that I can go and have a shower. Babe, I really just need a massive hug and for you to say you love and appreciate me. Right? asking a man for what you want is generally, like 90% of the time, going to position him as the problem solver, as your hero, as your prince, as your king. It's all of these like old-fashioned ideas that like make us like totally cringe. But that is actually what works in a marriage. We each need to feel like we're a hero, like we're valued, like we're appreciated, like we're needed. And when you are Mrs. Independent Woman, or I'll speak for myself, when I'm Mrs. Strong Independent Woman, fine, I'll do it by myself, but I reserve the right to cry about it and complain about it and be resentful about it. I get nowhere in a hurry. I don't get the results I want from my marriage. So we have to be honest with ourselves. Do we really want the help? And if so, we ask for it clearly. The third thing I'll say is that very often I don't actually want his help. Okay. I'm actually perfectly fine for him to, whatever it is, go play basketball or have a nap or sleep in or whatever. And I want to do it myself. I want to do it my way. In fact, if he did do it, I would be critical of the way he did it. Okay. But I do want something. And the thing that I want, and it's embarrassing to admit on the internet, but it's the truth, I want appreciation and acknowledgement. Okay. I want him to see what a great mom I am, or how amazing I'm keeping the house, or how great my cooking was, or that I managed to work out even though I've been with the kids all day. I want him to acknowledge me. I don't want to feel taken for granted. This is kind of a universal feeling that I think all of us have, is that we want to be appreciated. We don't want to be taken for granted. Husband alert. We don't want, when he goes to the bedroom for hours and leaves you to navigate everything by yourself, the biggest problem might not be the practical help that you need from him. It might be that, in which case just ask for it. But it might actually be the feeling of being taken for granted. Like, huh? How can you just go to it must be nice. It must be nice to just go to the bedroom and be like, Salamat, I'm going off for my evening because I have a wife, right? I have a wife who's going to take care of the kids and I don't need to worry about that. And then we feel taken for granted. And then we feel like, what about me? When do I get mine? And we get put into that resentful cycle with him. And then we criticize him and complain to him and then he withdraws and it doesn't go well. Okay. So here, the idea is to say something along the lines of, my love, I know that you've worked a long day and you want to have some alone time, and that's totally fine. I get it. I would like that too. And maybe, and this is only if it's true for you, maybe I'm happy doing dinner and bedtime. But first, you need to grab me by the waist, tell me I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, and appreciate, show some appreciation for what I've done right now. You'll have to dish out what you asked for as well. You have to appreciate him and his work and his contribution so that you can turn this into a virtuous cycle of mutual appreciation. And then if you do have specific things that you want, hey, could you limit it to half an hour so that I can get a break in half an hour, for example? Or can we agree to meet at the dinner table at 6 p.m. so that we all eat dinner together? Larissa, is this landing for you? Feel free to push back. Okay, I'm sure a lot of resistance is coming up as I'm saying this, not just Larissa, everyone who's listening. And that's fine. And that's part of the coaching that we do here and that we do inside the studio primarily, is that we really want to untangle these things so that you don't have to suffer from them anymore. Because take it from me, a pattern of resentment in your marriage, or a pattern of your child lying, or a pattern of germ phobia constantly causing anxiety in your kids is something that will continue to perpetuate forever unless you change it. You actually have to take steps to decide, I want something different in my family culture. You have to actually decide, I'm going to change this pattern. I'm not going to, let my marriage go into old age with these repeating patterns of resentment and carrying tons of baggage from early childhood of my kids. So if you're ready to make that decision, if you're ready to decide differently, if you're ready to become a leader, if you're ready to craft a family atmosphere and vibe that you enjoy, that you love being a part of, that everyone feels good in, then join me in the studio, because that is where I can give you this type of coaching and so much more and so much deeper. And I'll just linger for a moment on that family atmosphere and vibe. Okay. It's hard to articulate this. Sometimes I feel like what I kind of sell it's unclear to people what I'm talking about when I say family culture. So let me just explain for a minute. We all had an image, a fantasy of what it would be like to be married or to have children, right? And now you're here, you have your children, you have a home. And sometimes there's just such a mismatch between how we thought it would feel or how it should feel or how it looks on Instagram, right? In the pictures or even in our own family pictures, and how it actually feels in real life. And what I want to do is help you to close that gap, okay? Many of us feel like we have imposter syndrome, like we're a fraud, like we're not good enough, like we're guilty. Like as a mom, I'm yelling too much. I'm not doing all the things I said I would do. We're not doing the reading. We're not doing the outings. We're on screens too much. We never have those family meals. We don't have family albums. I'm behind. I'm still in 2021 with my albums. All these ideas of things that we wished for and wanted in our families, but that aren't actually happening in real life. Okay. And I want to say, forget the highlight reel, forget the Instagram posts, forget the Christmas cards. I want you to experience that high vibe, okay, that good atmosphere in your real life, where you go through your days. Sure, there's some conflict, there's some frustrations. I'm not going to pretend everything's perfect in my home because it isn't. I had a fight with my husband last week. I had an argument with my 13-year-old this morning. Okay, we got to keep it real. Okay, but where more often than not, okay, where most of the time you feel empowered, you feel in control, you feel like you know what you're doing, you feel like culture out there isn't going to raise your children for you, you're going to raise your children. Okay, you're going to decide what your values are, what your traditions, what your rituals are. You're going to give them legacy, heritage, connection, community. Okay, you're going to give them clarity and conviction in this life that today's younger generation is so missing. They don't have it. They're lost. They're anxious. They're depressed. They're lonely and isolated. Okay. And that doesn't get solved in the school system. Politicians can't solve it. No one else can solve it. Only their parents. This is a parenting issue for sure. Many other things contribute, okay, like social media, but it's a parenting issue for sure, to give our kids the type of guidance that they really need in this life. And so that starts with having a resentment-free marriage, okay? It's not going to be resentment-free 100% of the time. Don't catch me on every little word. Mine is not, but reducing it from, let's say, 80% resentment to 10% resentment, so it becomes really manageable. Think about the metaphor of maybe physical health, okay? Now, in our physical health, we need to get, within good norms, okay? Good norms of blood pressure, good norms of bone density, good norms of muscle mass. And then we can do things. We can walk places. We can lift things up. We are empowered. We are not ridden with pain and exhaustion, right? When our physical bodies are in a pretty healthy place. And then you can even optimize it. You can become an athlete. You can become extra, healthy, okay? But how healthy is your family dynamic? That atmosphere, that vibe, it's a very good indicator. It's like a barometer for the dynamics in our family, for the health of our family, for the wellness of this unit. Is this home, I don't want to say a happy home because I feel like that's a bit trite and a bit superficial. It's not like a happy home, but is it a joyful home? Is it a home with a good culture? Are you creating a home that your children are getting what they need to grow up to be those resilient individuals, stand-up individuals, people with a backbone, people with broad shoulders? Guys, we need that in our culture more than ever before. We need strong individuals, mentally tough, people who know how to love well, who have good relationships, who have good guidance and moral compasses, because Hana told her 6-year-old, we don't lie. I will not stand for lies in this family, because she is going to be that spiritual guide for her child that will not let them go off on some wrong path where lying is normalized and is made okay. No, because she's here with me now. Hana, you're here with me now, and you're getting clear on your values. And now you are going to be the leader in your family. You're that CEO, and you're going to make sure that your child is held to a certain standard, because we're actually shaping the future with our parenting. That's what we're doing. We're shaping the future more than almost any other project of your life. I would imagine maybe any other project of your life. Raising your children is literally shaping the minds of the future. Larissa says, thank you so much, Avital. You have no idea how much help you are offering. I am so glad to hear that. Lenny said, I just wanted to say that I'd highly recommend joining us in the studio. The upcoming year will be, let me just get this on the screen. The upcoming year will be my 5th one, and our family life has changed slowly but surely in a beautiful direction. Lenny, thank you so much. She says, my home is set up in a way that enables play and makes even my friend who is a preschool teacher jealous. We have beautiful family albums to look at. I do work out regularly, and our space is decluttered. And yesterday We spent all 4 hours outside in the sun, all thanks to the projects in the studio. We all know what would be the right thing to do, but actually getting there is way easier in a like-minded community. That is so true. And I do want to just explain what Lenny's saying. Inside of the studio, every single season, we take on a project. And the project is a new family habit that you're going to establish. It might be eating around the table without screens. It might be getting out in nature. It might be getting fit. Or it might be having a tech-free break. It might be making your family albums finally. It might be researching your family tree or getting organized with your schedule. And the idea here is that, like Lenny said, you all kind of know these things. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know you should have tech-free meals, time in nature, good bedtime routines, healthy habits with your body, mind, and soul. You know that you should make your family albums and talk about memories, talk about values, and have debates at the dinner table and all these things that you know you should do. Doing them is really, really hard. Now, I'm going to expose my bias here, okay? Full transparency. I come from a modern Orthodox Jewish background, so I grew up with a very strong family culture. For example, we take tech-free Sabbaths, right? We observe Shabbat, so we're never on screens at the weekend. And I grew up with a very strong sense of values, of community, of what we stand for, of who we are, of what's right, of what's wrong, of how to behave, of the meaning of our history, of our legacy, of a family, all of that stuff. Respect to elders, respect to property, all sorts of things that were very, very powerful. But especially as I grew up, I went to, a very liberal education in college. I was in art school, and I lived in America for about a decade. And I noticed that in our kind of westernized, secularized society, it is so hard to hold on to a backbone and to values. It is so hard to create a culture. It is so hard to guide our children into certain values. In fact, very, very quickly at very early ages, just fads and influencers and celebrities and TikTok swoop in and fill that void and kind of, ship our children away from us and guide them into what's cool and what's, valuable and how they should live. And that's why I started the studio, because I want to empower every parent from every walk of life, from every value system, from every belief system, from every faith, tiny families, big families, blended families, single moms, homeschool families, everyone, really, everyone who wants to be an intentional parent and raise a strong, resilient child. I want to empower them with the tools that I take for granted because I grew up with them on how to build a culture. So what I've been doing over the last decade is really reverse engineering, kind of deconstructing what creates a sense of community, what creates a sense of respect for our parents, what helps children learn values like not lying, for example, right? What helps create a sense of respect for property? What helps create meaning in a world where there's a real crisis of meaning? And these are the types of things that I've been trying to decode and match up that ancient wisdom that I grew up with modern day evidence-based science. Okay, what does the science say? What do we know? This fascinating science where there's a lot of things that are just 20% effort, but they have 80% effects. For example, a family meal. Family meals are one of those habits that have outsized effects on children. When families sit down for dinner, okay, once a week even, children experience tremendous benefits like academic achievement, like social and emotional skills, like confidence. They have lower rates of incarceration and crime, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So these small habits, what I've really been kind of mapping out, and that's what I offer you in the studio, is this map, this roadmap, this blueprint. I give you project by project by project, plus the accountability and the community and the coaching and the PDF guides and everything you need to actually make it happen. Because it's hard to, I'm telling you right now what the projects are. I'm not hiding anything. I could tell you everything right now, what we do in the studio, and you can go off and do it yourself. The reason to join the studio is because you actually, I think, benefit tremendously from accountability, kind of like having that gym coach, or going to the gym or whatever it is that helps you to actually do the thing you're supposed to do, but you're not necessarily going to do it on your own. If that makes sense. Sakyu says, the studio is great. Highly, highly recommend. Lovely, constant mindset work that totally pays off. Thank you so much. That is so kind of you for sharing that here. It warms my heart. This is, I'm very, very, very lucky to be doing work that I absolutely love and truly deeply believe in. So I love the studio and I love the work that we do there. If you enjoyed this session and it's the kind of mindset shifts and aha moments and, new ways of looking at things, if you like the blend between ancient wisdom and modern day science, if you feel like, you know what, I need someone to keep me on track. I want to take on these projects. I want to up level. I want to kind of go pro with my parenting. Then make sure to check out the studio. Right now we have our early birds. Early bird, and very soon we'll be opening the doors. We kick off May 1st, but you want to grab your seat before that because this is a limited time to sign up. All right, highfam.com/studio. Much love, everyone. And a reminder that I will be going live regularly to answer all of your questions. So keep them coming. You can DM them to me. It's much better for me if you put them in the comments on YouTube. That's the best way for me to make sure that I see them. It also helps the algorithm. So it's a win-win for me. But I will make sure to answer your questions which way you send them in. Hopefully. I'm hoping I do 100%. All right. Much love. Keep on living that high fam life. Bye, everyone.